welcome back. Keegan Kogan again, Man Cave Classroom in A10, and today we're going to be talking about empires. And anytime empire is brought up, I almost feel like it's never positive, almost. You know, you got the Yankees with the evil empire, Star Wars.
That's
Empire.
right where I go.
Is that's
Empire Strikes Back, Episode 5.
Right.
The greatest Star Wars movie ever made.
And yet we're trying to say here how the United States is like this is the good guy, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be tough here because the thing is that when it comes to empires, maybe one expression that comes to mind is that hey, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. And the United States, when it came to building this empire, they broke some eggs. You're not gonna like how we acquire territory.
You're
throughout
not.
this unit.
You're not. But we also kind of learned from the mistakes of empires past.
Yes.
You know, we definitely looked at the Roman Empire.
Yes.
That got too big to govern itself.
Right.
We looked at the British Empire that became tyrannical towards its conquered colonial possessions, better way to say. And we kind of learned from that lesson. Not completely.
Right.
But we're going to make some concessions, I guess you'll call it,
I mean,
in the way we lead them.
When we look at the Pacific, just certain things that come to mind as you're saying. I mean, when we look at the Pacific and we started this unit and how we're going to, expand trade, expand the Navy, we wind up acquiring Alaska. After the Spanish-American War, we get control of the Philippines, Guam, and of course over in Cuba. But if, for example, one thing that comes to mind when it comes to Hawaii, because the way we wind up acquiring that is not nice.
No.
The people of Hawaii today, the Hawaiians today, do not like this part of the history. However, again, not putting personal opinions or anything, if you look at where Hawaii is, if we didn't acquire it, someone else may have eventually. So, I mean, and that's not justifying it all, but when
they
it comes
certainly
to building
weren't going to
empires-
stem off an invasion from any of the industrialized nations, particularly Japan or the United States.
Right.
If Britain wanted them, they would have taken them easily
Right,
too.
exactly. Again, not justifying it, but if this is a game, that's just how that game is played, unfortunately. So after the Spanish-American War, again, this splendid little war, lasts 4 months, like a first or second round knockout, here's what we acquire, what do we do with them now? That's going to be the big question that we're
And I always like to point out to my students that our empire was nothing compared to the British Empire,
Sure.
the Spanish Empire, the French, go way back to the Romans. The lands that we acquired, the territorial lands, were insignificant in size,
Right.
but extremely significant in location and strategy.
It's funny how we're moving forward with this, and we have to pause on how we're wording certain things throughout this.
Yes.
Because it's a very delicate unit,
It's
and there's parts of it that are very ugly, which we'll see today. So again, here's what we acquired. We talked about this political cartoon with Uncle Sam. Now do you think he's going to let go? If you don't know him, he's definitely not. So this is what we have, and again, if we want to kind of corroborate, all right, the fact that this is the opinion out there. You're going to have Uncle Sam smoking a stogie, putting flags over areas that he has acquired. Alaska, the ones I just mentioned there, the Philippines, Hawaii, Puerto Rico.
And then even having multiple flags in the other hand and under his arm, like, oh, I need to get more.
Yeah, I'm not done.
Yeah.
I'm not done.
Absolutely.
I got to get rid of these flags.
Absolutely.
I've got to get rid of these flags. Another nice political cartoon here that appeared in Puck magazine.
This one is much more clear
Yes.
than the nativist cartoon.
Letter P.
Clearly a P.
Okay, so if we look here at this cartoon, Uncle Sam is at the tailor. He's getting fitted by, let's see, who's this? William
McKay.
McKay.
Down here.
William, oh wow, ooh, that's something I need my glasses for. All right, so if you look here, Uncle Sam is getting larger. He's at a tailor shop. They're measuring him because he needs a new outfit. He needs a new suit. Why? Because he's getting bigger.
And the stripes on the pants, I'm sure Mr. Hegan, his editing, will pop this out for us. We've got Texas, Louisiana Purchase, Alaska, Florida, California, Hawaii, Puerto Rico. Love pointing out to my students, I'm sure you do the same, about size in political cartoons.
Yeah, absolutely.
That yes, he's getting larger, but he's not getting larger like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson larger.
Right. Right.
He's getting larger more in the belly area, symbolizing more size as strength, but more size as greed. That he's insatiable, he wants more. and he's going to continue to eat,
Which is
and
why,
get larger,
more flags.
going to
We're not done
continue
yet.
to eat and get larger as he's literally busting
Oh, he's busting
at his seams.
But we could be putting on some masks if you're talking about The Rock, because, connecting to Alpha Theta Mahan, as you're getting bigger, that's more places for you to put your Navy.
Yep.
So, definitely in terms of the greed, though. All right, great.
Well, let's go back, because we
Yeah.
have to point out at this time, too, that there were many Americans who were against imperialism.
Oh, absolutely.
We have over here these three gentlemen coming in with elixirs, with medicine saying against expansion policy, almost like it's a medicine. Like, here, America, take this, you'll lose weight, and the title of this cartoon, declined with thanks. Like, yeah, we're good, stick to yourself, we're getting bigger.
And I'm glad you're bringing that up, because, as we're getting bigger, again, things we pointed out at the beginning of this unit, new markets, more territory, more naval bases. There is
need for raw materials as an industrialized nation.
There's a dollar amount that's connected to this that we can't even really begin to equate at this point, which is great. So you did have people who were against imperialism, and you probably got an indication of that earlier on, and how we're choosing our words carefully, and how we're saying, hey, the way we wind up acquiring Hawaii wasn't exactly nice. Anti-imperialists would definitely be on board with that.
Yeah.
Now, what are we going to do with these lands when it comes to that? The Platt Amendment. A lot of different ways to look at this and explain this. When it comes to this, we have control of these areas. Now we tell them, okay, you're no longer ruled by Spain. We're going to set up some ground rules of how our relationship is going to go.
You are
moving forward.
free, dear Cuba, Platt Amendment. Write your own constitution, but we're going to add the Platt Amendment into your constitution, basically saying you are free and independent, but we get to kind of check in on you whenever we want and intervene in your affairs whenever we want. Oh, and by the way, you've got to give us that wonderful port on the southern side of your island, what becomes known as Guantanamo Bay.
Yep. So they're gonna be independent. However, there's gonna be some restrictions. It's like, for example, you just got your driver's license. All right, you can drive wherever you want. However, there's a curfew. There's going to be quite a few limitations put in there.
Well, really, the example I give in my classroom, it's like your bedroom at home. Your bedroom at home is your bedroom.
However,
you might be able to hang up a poster on the wall.
Right.
You might be able to decide what channel you're watching on TV, but you're still in mom and dad's house. That's
what I was saying. But there's a lot of different ways to look at that. They're going to become a protectorate, so a nation whose independence is going to be limited by the control of a more powerful country. Again, when we're talking about empires, and when we're looking at the map here, we have to also be wary of the fact that they are new countries now, independent, and we have to worry about the possibility of another country possibly taking them over. So that's another thing we're going to add.
And you like that word protectorate.
Protect.
We are going to protect them, and we will protect their independence as long as our interests there are also being protected.
Absolutely. 4-Acre Act, again, you're going to give Puerto Rico limited say in their own affairs. The U.S. is also going to set up a new government. This is going to be the way they spread democracy as well when we're getting into this. And this one, let's take a moment at this one, because there is a lot of history in here, I think. Lots of connections to things that we've already covered here.
Yeah, all right. I look at this and my first question is, where are we?
We're in school.
We're in school.
School is in session.
School is in session. Who is the teacher?
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam is the teacher.
Oh, man.
And we've got the good students. We've got the good students in the back of the classroom doing the right thing. And if we were able to zoom in and see, it says Nebraska and California and New York. It's all the different states. And Mr. Heeg, we've been doing this quite a long time.
Yes, we have.
We kind of pick up on who the bad students are in class.
Because we were.
Yeah. Right after, a week or so of school.
Absolutely.
After you've made up your seating chart.
And
where are you going to put those bad students?
Right up front.
You're going to sit right up here in the front of the room.
Right over here, buddy.
Yeah.
We're gonna become friends.
Now this year, notwithstanding, because it's like we have 3 kids in class this year.
But again, if somebody's going to be a troublemaker, I know this from personal experience. You're going to be in the back. You can kind of get away with stuff. So your troublemakers are going to be right up front here.
Yeah. Why? So teacher can keep an eye on you. Teacher can keep an eye on you. And if again we zoom in on these naughty students, we've got the Philippines, we've got Hawaii, we've got Puerto Rico, and we've got Cuba. See how I did that?
That was pretty good.
Puerto Rico and Cuba. Throwing in some racist undertones in this political cartoon.
I'm hoping racism is screaming out at you
Yes.
at this point, because racism is also one of our reasons for imperialism as well.
Yeah. So America takes it upon itself, and if we zoom in here, it talks about U.S. lesson on self-government and who we're going to teach on how to govern themselves. We almost took this on as our responsibility to spread our way of life throughout the world. Man, that sounds really familiar.
It does really,
Going
absolutely.
back to 7th grade history and
Yeah,
the
Spanish, the
Christianity.
gold, God, and glory.
Yeah.
Because as the Spanish wanted to convert Native Americans over to Christianity, this is also going to be a piece of that as well.
You know, and you know, we noticed the good kids in the back of the class all happen to be white.
Yep.
You know, the naughty kids in the front all happen to be the Filipino, Hawaiian, Puerto Rican, darker skins.
Right.
You know, and now we're also kind of ignoring the 3 other individuals that are in class and or not in
So
class.
if your head is not spinning at this point, let's go to the back then, because now you have the African American in the back cleaning the windows, and of course in political cartoons, the caricature, the way they exaggerate the features of African Americans are horrible during this particular time period, and then
I almost wonder, like, if this person had a thought bubble,
ooh,
what it would say. Probably something like, gee, I wish I went to their school.
right,
Because the Jim Crow laws are still in effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plessy Ferguson, separate but equal.
Mhm.
African Americans had their own set of schools that were certainly not equal
Right.
to those of the white Americans.
I mean, it's probably, you're bringing up the whole segregation. This is probably the one time, and this is, I hate to chuckle, I chuckle at how ridiculous this is. This is going to be the one time that you actually see an African American during this time period in the same school as whites, even though you're talking about segregation.
Yeah.
And they put him in there, and the cartoonist is putting him in there to make a point,
Yes.
which is awful.
We've got our Native American, and you know, we go back to our westward expansion unit, the Carlisle Industrial School.
Sure.
That was our job to save kill the Indian but save the man. I like to point out that he's reading a book upside down.
Yep.
So clearly teacher isn't really paying much attention to their needs at the time. And then of course, the one that isn't even allowed to come into school.
I know.
You know, because they have been excluded from entrance into the country altogether, the Chinese. And that Chinese Exclusion Act passed way back in the 1880s. And I also like to note, look at Uncle Sam's face.
Yeah.
He's not happy.
No, he's definitely not.
It's almost like it's a burden
Yep.
on him to have to educate those uncivilized or those less civilized than we. And always take that with a grain of salt. You know, certainly they all had their own civilization, but because their culture was different from ours,
It was seen as inferior.
we almost have that nativist mentality.
Yes, absolutely.
Even though these aren't immigrants, these are conquered peoples or acquired peoples.
Yep.
Conquered.
Yep.
We've had that ethnocentric.
Yes.
I don't want to say xenophobic because we're really the outsider here, but it's that mentality, that ethnocentric. We're better than you. You're a savage.
So many levels.
Yeah,
When
it
you
really
and,
is.
And quite a few things that I say to my students is that when you're looking at United States history and we look at how we have treated other peoples that are not white, it hasn't been exactly kind. And no cartoon captures this better than this one. Anything else we want to add with this one? I mean, we could talk about this for a while. I mean, just in terms of
There are some things like getting into what's being written back here about.
Globe.
These are excerpts from the Declaration of Independence, excerpts from the Constitution, I
flag
think.
right there,
Yeah.
definitely dominating. And I like this too because
Love this one.
this combines a couple of things we're talking about in terms of the United States getting larger. Wonderful in terms of a timeline as well, to give you an idea of that as well.
We're starting off as a little baby.
Yeah.
1783.
So cute.
Signing of the Treaty of Paris. You know, we are finally recognized by the British as a free and independent country. All of a sudden, boom, 1803.
Louisiana
Pretty
Purchase.
sure it's the Louisiana Purchase. What has happened? We've doubled in size.
Yep.
You know, and I love that example there of the baby to the young man.
Yep.
Finally, 1819, the acquiring of Florida From Spain was 1819.
Yep, that's the same.
We're into our young adulthood. Finally, 1861,
Yep.
Civil War. We've put our big boy pants on as a country.
absolutely.
It's really our first national crisis, and we've come through it with flying colors, and then all of a sudden we start to see.
He's a little bit arrogant if
Oh
you're
my
looking
God,
here,
yeah.
right? In comparison,
Hands
you know,
down.
of course, how would you feel after a first round knockout after
Yep.
the Spanish-American War?
Yep. And then the very next year, the acquiring of Cuba and the Philippines, we are now El Gordo.
Yeah.
We are quite
El
large.
Gordo.
We are quite large. I love that he's got the Great White Fleet
Yep.
in under his arm here. And then the last little caption here, not the clearest picture here. And now the other nations can't quite make this out.
Friendly. I mean, everybody usually gets the point here that at this point, you know, you have other nations that want to be friends with
Yeah,
us.
reaching out,
We're now the
shaking our
cool
hands.
kids.
We're the big boy in the block.
Yeah, we are the big boy.
No one wants to mess with us anymore.
Of course, we mentioned, I have this map here of Guantanamo Bay that we have in terms, you know, since we are talking about a Navy and we're talking about having more control in Cuba, you know, the big takeaway also is that we have a naval base over in Cuba,
Still
Guantanamo
do.
Bay.
Still
Gitmo.
Ever look at it on Google Earth?
No.
Yeah, you really can.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool.
The coffee hasn't made its way to the top floor just yet. All right, great. Anything else we need to add with this?
Nope.
It's pretty interesting. All right, well, thank you for watching.